Good morning, everyone. We're going to start off with a survey. Welcome. It'll give a few other people an opportunity to join as they have their alarms ringing to remind them that they have a webinar that they've signed up for. But feel free to put some of this in here, start to fill in some of this. This helps us kind of get a sense for where you guys are at. And we'll get started in just a sec. See what it says. Yeah. Lots of tools out there for planning and accountability and delegation. So many tools, so many books, so many ways to get at this. It seems to be, I think, right up there with like right after diet books and get fit books is probably like how to get stuff done books is like next popular item in life. So I think it's something we're all challenged with as human beings and in our busy lives. So we'll see where we're at. All right. Looks like we'll have a few more people joining us here as we go, but in the meantime, we're going to get rolling with everybody so you guys can see the results here. We got some people using Microsoft Planner, some Trello users, Teamwork user, spreadsheet users, and some not really doing much about it. So good. So this should be a great opportunity for everyone. So let's see, what do we want to know here? So welcome again. My name's Jeremy Cherney. I am the owner of Tobin Solutions and really delighted to be here with you today. I think it's been the first webinar we've done in a bit. I can't recall, but I know we took a summer off on a few of those. So it's great to be back in the swing of things with these and talk about this really great topic. Also in the one of the participants you'll see out there as a co-host is Amanda. And so welcome, Amanda. And she may jump in with questions and managing anything that's there. And, you know, there's going to be a lot of learnings along the way, I hope, for you. Maybe you've heard some of this before. Maybe, you know, you'll hear it the third time and you'll hear something new or different with it. Really just look at this as like an opportunity. You know, if you, it's not necessarily to go to do something out of this, no pun intended, but look at it as an opportunity. And along the way, if you've got questions, you know, we can do that. And at the end of the webinar, there'll be an opportunity for questions. Also, there'll be an opportunity at the end for, we'll be sending you a survey at the end for your feedback on how the webinar went. So please let us know, because your feedback is very valuable to us, both in terms of how I present, the quality of the presentation, your experience along the way, and the topics. So you have an opportunity to put your 2 cents in there. And when you fill out the survey, you'll get a link to the webinar and a copy of the PDF of the slide deck. So a little bit for some of you may not be familiar with Microsoft 365. A lot of you may already be. This is it's not such a new product anymore, although it has gone through a lot of name changes. I still find myself calling it Office 365. So if you hear me saying that, that's not what I mean. I mean Microsoft 365. And it's Microsoft's cloud service. I love to think of it like a Swiss Army knife. You know, you're not, you know, a lot of you may have started with Microsoft 365 to get email or to get Microsoft Office, and there's just so many other things that it has, so many other components for, you know, kind of a soup to nuts environment for you. So there's a lot of pieces to it, and like any tool, you want to make sure you're using it right. You know, you got the Swiss Army knife here. You could use the knife to try and undo a screw, but why not use the screwdriver instead, right? So, and sometimes you need help to know about that, and that's where we come in. Tobin Solutions will assist with security, support, migration, administration, development, and integration as well. So let's see here. We have a little bit more about their plans. They did have a price increase earlier this year, I think. So you might see your prices going up on some of these things. The Business Basic which is basically everything online, but most of their offerings, but everything through a web browser and from your smartphone and tablets, including Teams, $6 a month with an annual commitment. And then many of you might be in the business standard, which also includes the full Microsoft Office. Some of you might just be using apps for business, which is really just the Office and OneDrive SharePoint components. And then Business Premium, which we're talking to more customers about because of as they're moving more and more workloads to the cloud or thinking about getting rid of their traditional file server, some of those capabilities that are on their traditional file server may still need to be in place for their business. And that might be something that you can get through as part of the Microsoft 365 subscription, as well as some of the advanced security components that we recommend. So, I was talking a little bit before as you came on. Does any of this sound like you? I sounded like this about 5 seconds after waking up this morning. There is no shortage of things that I have on my to-do list. I even joked to my kids once because I was talking about it. And I've got high school and college age kids, and I'm telling them I have items on my to-do list that predate their birth. So there's a lot of that. And sometimes I try and do it myself because I'm kind of one of those people. And for me, it's a real skill to try and develop working with other people and having them help and do things. And really, as a business owner, I realized my number one job is to run the business. My number one job is to build the team. Correct that. My number one job is to build the team, and they really run the business. So if we're going to run the business, it can't all be me. They're going to have to be able to know what to do and how to do it and work together. And as part of developing the team and that, when I'm feeling like these bullet points, it's probably because I'm not really being effective with my delegation and accountability. It's probably something missing in there. So there are no shortage of books around to-do and time management, and we're going to talk a little bit about one in here just as a good structure. And it's a great book, very simple and very simple process. But there's lots of them out there. Here's a few of them. And there's many, many, many more, along with apps and to-do coaches and honey-do jars and all the different structures we put in place to try and get things done and figure out how to get things done. What I like is this book. This person actually came and spoke at one of my business groups, and she was a great speaker, and the book was just easy peasy. That's what I liked about it. It was 6 simple steps that I'll share with you here. But I recommend buying the book because, it's great to have the book. There's a nice little card in there you can use that you can keep on your desktop for kind of how to delegate, to remind you. And it's a real easy read and well worth it if you actually use it. This is kind of some components here. Again, buy the book because it's going to go into it a lot more detail. But, some of these may seem very straightforward. Maybe some of these you're doing to varying degrees of success. But really, if you're going to delegate with somebody, the first thing you want to do is you want to prepare. You want to clearly and specifically define what the task is. You want to know when this is going to be done by. You want to have a timeline for this. Then you want to be clear, and this is kind of a neat thing in the book. And this is something I always struggle with, like giving somebody something. Did I want them to really go run with it and get it done? Was I just looking to get some more information? And part of it's depending on the task, part of it's depending on the person. So you want to be clear when you're delegating, what are you actually going to do? You just want them to go out and do some research and recommend some ideas for you? Do you want them just to go out and they're probably going to go do it based on their recommendation because you got that kind of confidence in them, but you just want to put a little pause in there to inform you before they go run with it to go do it? You might do that. Or you might say, look, they know this. I can say, go do it, and they're just going to go run with it, and they're going to know to go do that. But you want to be clear about it, because sometimes when we get something we don't expect, it can be a cause for upsets. Depending on the nature of the task, you might have some checkpoints along the way, so you want to make sure those are in to make sure people are on task. For me, that was a huge thing. I would give somebody a big task, and then I'd get the final thing, and I'd be like, no, that's not what I wanted at all. And they just wasted months and weeks, and and I'm just end up being a big jerk to them because I didn't pause along the way just to check in to see if they knew what was going on, if they were on track or not. Because sometimes maybe my delegation wasn't effective, maybe they didn't understand something. You want to build in some checkpoints to create success for everybody. And then in the end, you want to kind of debrief, how did the delegation work? How did the accountability work? What worked, what didn't work? And it's all in that book. So go buy that book or something similar. Here's a little more details on that and where you might use those levels of authority. By the way, I'm not a to-do guru. I'm just a serial procrastinator. I'm a serial wait to the last minute on things. So the more I can do around this, the more structures I can put into place, the more I work to work this muscle, because some people are just really great at certain things, right? You ever notice there's some people that they don't have to really be prompted to go to the gym and go work out. They just do it. They just know it, whatever that is. And some people really need a structure around it. For some people, organizing to-dos and delegating, they just know it, or they're really good at it. They don't have to think much about it. And some, it's a challenge. I'm in the raise my hand, it's a challenge category. So, you can start to think about this. This is pretty self-explanatory. How important is this versus how high is the knowledge and expertise of the person you're going to delegate something to, and then just, kind of give you a little guideline for it. A little more details on what I was sharing before about the recommend, inform, initiate, and act. The bottom line is, you just want to really think about that before you delegate, because oftentimes the upset is when our expectations aren't met around this part of it. So prepare beforehand, get your expectations. People want to know why sometimes. Sometimes there isn't a time to know why, right? Like, someone's about to touch a hot stove. Don't touch the hot stove. Like, they don't need like a big why thing, although you'd be surprised sometimes people will go right up to the edge of a cliff before they, without knowing why. But really, people can't read your mind as well. Sometimes they're going to make up their own why. And sometimes it's not the why you'd want. Maybe they're saying, and it doesn't make any difference what they're making up or what you're not communicating. The point is you want to be very clear what you are communicating and they understand what it is. And it's great. The more I do this, the better my life sings and dances, for real. It gives me more time to focus on things that I want to do. It allows me to grow my confidence and trust in people, and they start to grow their skills and ability. It turns my role from a doer to more of a mentor and a coach and a team builder. They get to have more opportunities, right? People are there to work. They're there to do something. They've got some purpose why they're working with you, and they want to be able to do things that they do, and they want to get, acknowledged for it. And boy, when you're really delegating something properly that they can really take and run with and deliver on and bring you an A+ project, you want to celebrate the heck out of it. And this totally sets them up for that kind of success. It allows for any clear documentation of poor performance. So if somebody isn't getting something done, sometimes there's an issue, but you want to be able to kind of, set up a structure that they're very clear on what it is. So this helps as well. And really, if you think about it, are you going to get better results by effectively delegating or not? Any little edge here in the world, any little fire you can avoid or not have to fight later, this is good stuff. And it's how we talk about accountability, right? And kind of the flip side of accountability is where people are blaming and making excuses and in denial of what's going on. This creates a structure for accountability because it's a little harder to create that blame, excuse, and denial when it's very clear what they were supposed to do. Now, they may come up with reasons why something didn't get done, dog ate my homework kind of stuff, but at least it won't be because they didn't know what it was. And not only does this give you a way to assign things to people, right? You want to say who's going to do it. It gives you a way to track things, how to track the progress, how to set reminders, things like that, because people are human. There's a lot of stuff going on in the world right now. And this is just the to-do list at work. This doesn't include people's to-do lists at home, their personal to-do list, all those other things. There's a lot spinning around up in people's heads. And so if you can take a little bit of less stress off of people's plate around at least their accountabilities at work, it's a better workplace often. They'll be happier at work. and they'll stick around longer and be more, better part of the team. So, like I said, for me, this is a big muscle development. My muscles are not this big right now, and I've been working at this for a while, but we keep working at it. But the point is, you just want to start somewhere. You want to start figuring out where your gaps are in how you delegate. So take a look at that book, and then we're going to get into some of the tools around delegation later to help fulfill on what it is that you want. So, and this is kind of a little bit more about the accountability, right? Because if you're not going to do it, or maybe you are doing it, it could be who's doing it is you or somebody else, but it's like by when? Who is doing what by when? That's just a real simple thing. In the world of delegation and accountability, is there anything more than that? Now, obviously, there's more details to it, and who's doing what could be a huge project, but fundamentally, that's the accountability. Who is doing what by when? So they're clear on who, the what, and the when, and you start to build in that structure for accountability. So let's take a quick survey. There will be a survey coming up. There it is. So think about, as we're talking about delegation, what you're going to get the most use out of this is if you look at it less conceptually, but look at it like in your business. Where are the areas inside your business where you could see if you had more effective delegation, that it could actually make a difference? And then as you're listening to the rest of the presentation, start to think where this might kind of apply. And there may be other areas that aren't on here. Just write them down on a piece of paper for yourself. Give it another 20 seconds here. So once you wrap up your survey. Excuse me. All right, let's see the results. Oh, everyone's seen the results? I think you guys see that live. I have to see what that looks like. So yeah, you can see it's kind of across the board, like almost every area of somebody's business or team, there's a little gap there in where they could increase effective and have more effective delegation and accountability. And that's really, I like that term, and I share that term. We're not familiar with the gap, right? Not like it's good or bad or better or worse. It's just there's where you are now and where you'd like it to be in the future, or at some point in the future, or along the way in the future. And all there is between you and where you are now and that future is the gap. And we can see we got a little gap in some areas around sales and marketing and production and all the way around. So, and then as you're going through this, you kind of know the areas. Now take just 30 seconds and just write down a piece of paper inside of those areas. What's the specific business process or challenge where this could make a difference? And just take 30 seconds here. It'll really enhance the results you get from the webinar. All right, great. So we're here to talk about how to use some of the tools that Microsoft provides. Like we said, there's lots of tools. We showed a lot of those, or we looked at a lot of those before. You listed a bunch of the other popular ones you use. Again, I think a lot of them are going to do a really good job if you use a tool, right? Like, for me, what's the best diet book? The one you can stick to. That's what it means. So the best tool for you around this is the one you can stick to and use, and that works for your business and works really for everybody, for those that are delegating as well as for those the delegatees. So with your Microsoft subscription, though, you get a lot of this stuff built in almost every tier. I think every tier has almost all of this in. So if you're a Microsoft 365 customer already, you've got a lot of this. So why not take a look at it if you're not already doing something, or maybe if what you've got, you're on the fence about, maybe there's something here. So there's Microsoft Planner, Microsoft Project, which we're not going to get into here. Microsoft Project is a full-on project management system. We're going to talk about Microsoft To Do, a little bit of Microsoft Outlook, and Microsoft Teams integration. So Microsoft Planner is what's called a task-based project management system, or task-based management system. It's really designed for teams and groups, although you can be a team of one to do it. And really all you're doing is you're taking tasks and you're creating a list of tasks, and then you're putting them into different buckets. And if you're a project manager, those could be tasks and phases versus buckets. There's different ways to look at that. But you put them in, it's real simple to do. You can work with it on the web, or you can work with it from a phone or a tablet. I don't think there's a desktop app for it. You can even work with it inside of Microsoft Teams now. And, it's just easy. It's really easy peasy stuff. Now, it may or may not fit what you need, but from an accountability delegation standpoint, it actually works really, really well, because you can create a task in there and you can put it into a bucket, and then you can assign it to people, and then you can watch where it goes. And it integrates in with the other Microsoft tools for managing tasks. There's notifications. And again, you can work from anywhere. So sometimes, you're thinking, now depending on, I saw some of you had some areas where operations could use some accountability and delegation. In some cases, they've got a phone out there. It's an issue of like, how do they even get access to the task? How do they even update the task? They may have a computer if they're on the shop floor, or who knows, or they're mobile, right? They're running around from client to client and about. It's kind of inconvenient sometimes to pop open a laptop. So if you can do this from your phone with an app, wouldn't that be great? Well, sure. With Microsoft Planner, there's an app on your phone, so you can add tasks, manage tasks, do all that, see the status, update them from anywhere on any device. So a plan is made up of the tasks. So you start adding the tasks, and we're not going to get into the full-on demo here. I also want to put in here, this is not to make you an expert, because these classes are longer, and it's not just about knowing the technology, but it's about really knowing your business and how to properly apply it. So you can give someone a hammer and they can pound stuff, doesn't mean they can go build a house with it. So really today is just kind of expose you to some of these, talk about some high level things, but in your mind, map these to those areas and those issues you wrote down. Start to think about where this might impact that. So you go in and you add your to-dos, your tasks. You can put in due dates. You don't have to put in due dates. You can put in a priority. You don't have to put in a priority. You can assign people. You don't have to, you can put in as much or as little information as you want here. But what's nice is, you can start to build on this. Like you could simply just say, I'm going to start creating a task list. And then later on, you're going to add in due dates, and you're going to add in priorities, and you're going to attach people, and maybe attach a PDF of a file they need, and things like that. So you can start to put in there, but you can see how you can start to build these up, and then you can put them into buckets. So a bucket is just a folder of tasks. You could call it a folder or a phase. You might have different buckets for different departments. You might have different buckets for different phases of a project. And under each one, you can see it lists all those tasks you put in, as well as who's assigned. You can drag and drop them between other buckets. People get notified. So that's another nice part of accountability, right? How do I know something's due? How did I know I got something? Here, you can put something in, you can assign something to somebody. They'll get an email. It'll show up in their Microsoft To Do app if they want to use it. It'll show up in their Planner app as new tasks assigned. You can change how those things get pushed and alerted. There's some control over that. But fundamentally, it's that at Tobin Solutions, we've been talking a lot about handing off the baton, right? When you're going between people or between departments, there's that handoff of information and what to do next. And this is the handing off of the baton. Here you go. You're notified. You've got this new task to do. And then they can then click on it in a link and take them right into Planner and see what's in. You might want to have some basic reporting. This is not extensive reporting. It's basic reporting, but you know, it hits a sweet spot for probably 80% of what you want, right? You just get a quick view of where you're at with tasks. These could be your own tasks. These could be tasks for everybody or for a project, depending who's in the planner project. I'm sorry, planner plan. Project is a different product from Microsoft, and they have a whole online version as well, Microsoft Project. We're not really talking about that today, but if you need deeper project management, like you've got really detailed project plans that are, you're building a house or some real complex something or other, you may, or you're working with somebody that works with Microsoft Project, you can also add that to your Microsoft 365 subscription. Today, we're talking about Planner. So again, you can see the basics here. Again, this might be good enough, and you can see this from your phone. You know, you could be on a beach somewhere managing your team, looking at the tasks that are out there and what's there. You could be taking the afternoon off to go do something fun, and you know, you might want to check in somewhere along the way, and this is what you want to do. If you can't truly take the day off, you want to be able to check in. This gives you a way to be able to be out of the office a little bit more, to be able to do other things and focus on other things, because now you can get a better look at what's happening with people. You can even invite your clients or your business partners that are not inside your Microsoft 365 tenancy, and they can have some limited access to the things you put together in your plans that you give them access to. So that's pretty cool, because sometimes the to-dos lie over by the client or by our partner that we're working with. So now you can get, everyone can be on the same plan, and they can do it remotely as well. They don't need a license, and they don't need access. You don't need to provide them a license. They can just go in for free. So that was Planner. There is now also something called Microsoft To Do, right? It's been around for a bit. So To Do is more of a personal to-do system. You can create shared lists of to-dos to work with other people, and some people like to work that way, right? That's the other thing with to-dos. Some people like a calendar and they like everything slotted in. Some people just want to have a, hey, here's my work day, get these 5 things done. They don't map it out. They just know they got these 5 things. So there's different ways to work. And so Microsoft is coming up with different tools to address those different ways of kind of utilizing similar information and organizing similar information. And Microsoft To Do is a really great app for that, for both personally and professionally. So you can add all your to-do lists in here. You can create to-do lists. You can create specialized to-do lists. You can have a master list of to-dos. And there's an app for this. Actually, let me go back here. It's a powerful tool, because look at this. Studies show that if you spend your first couple hours identifying and focusing on your most important to-dos, that's like your greatest shot at the day. So having a good tool that'll get you organized in the morning, and not, you know, not that it's bad, because I do it sometimes too, but you get lost in Facebook or emails, you go some other rabbit hole or whatever, and then all of a sudden you kind of lose that productive time, because it's hard to focus. So this gives you a tool to focus those couple of hours around it. You can pick the to-dos you want to work on. You can add new to-dos. You can create different lists of to-dos. You can create the dates. So again, this is similar to Planner in the sense that, you know, you're kind of creating these to-dos, but it's not necessarily organized into buckets. It's organized just as a single list or as other lists you create. But To-Do is also a hub for other to-dos in other Microsoft systems. So if you look in the graphic over here on the left side, it says Assigned to Me, and it's got a little person icon. Those are Planner tasks. So if someone's assigning you Planner tasks, those are going to show up in here as well. If you flag emails, I think I've got a little bit more about that. Yeah, Outlook tasks show up in here. If you flag an email for follow-up, that's going to show up in this list. It's really neat. And you can create them. drop them in here and build up your lists. You can add more details to them. You can attach files, whatever you want to do to set up yourself up for success, but you have a really nice list. There's a to-do app in the web. There's a to-do app for your phone, your tablet. There's a to-do app that can sit in your tray on Microsoft Windows. You can use it on a Mac. I don't think it's a separate Mac app, but you can use it through the web browser or through a tablet, your Android phone. So it's everywhere, which is great, right? Because if you want to get some things done, a lot of times you might be in that place where that's the time you want to get something done, or that's the aha moment where you're like, oh, I just remembered I got to add something to my list here. You know, if you're like me, it's like oftentimes while you're driving or while you're in the shower or something like that. So, you know, you want to be able to add that to do. You might add it to somebody right away. The key is to capture that thought right away. So like I said, it works with Microsoft. So inside of Outlook, any Outlook tasks you have in there, it'll show those in Microsoft To Do. But if you go into an email in Outlook and there's a flag email option, that'll show up as a flagged email inside of your Microsoft To Do for future follow-up. So it'll be in both places. So at Microsoft being in one environment now, you can start to see where some of that information is kind of being shared behind the scenes, and you can kind of get at it with the right tool that works for you. If you're a Microsoft OneNote user, same thing. You can put in OneNote, that's if you haven't used OneNote, we have a whole other webinar on OneNote. It's kind of a digital multicolored tab binder that you can use, and you can put things in there and flag things as a to-do in Outlook task. But as I said, if it's an Outlook task, it'll then flow through to to-do. So there's other places to put tasks. And as you're seeing here, there's lots of places to put tasks. And some of it integrates well behind the scenes. Microsoft, there's other products they're adding to create tasks that haven't integrated with everything yet, but it's along the way. It's kind of being built. So this is why it's really important to pause before you jump in. I mean, certainly jump in and play with these tools as we're going through here, but before you really start to build something you think is going to be used for your production use, kind of take a pause and just make sure you're doing it the right way, that it's really going to match what you need so you don't box yourself in later on. As I mentioned, the Microsoft To Do Planner tasks flow through as well. So that's really nice. You can see those right inside of that, inside of Microsoft To Do. And in To Do, it's real easy. You just hit the plus sign to add a task, add your dates. You can move it up and down inside the list for priority. You can create a new list of things. So let's say you've got your list for operations, or your list for your health and well-being, if it's a personal list, or your shopping list, or anything like that. You can create those new lists. So it's really easy. And this is really a cool feature. So I showed you that slide before about the big idea of, you know, focusing and planning in the morning. Inside of Microsoft To Do, there's this thing called the My Day feature. And every day it starts with a clean slate. You open it up and there's nothing on there. And on the right side, it'll list recent to-dos that either you missed from yesterday's My Day that you didn't get complete, or it'll show you some other to-dos that are newer, things that are more urgent. You can really look through all your to-dos on there. And all you do is hit the plus sign, and then they'll automatically jump to that My Day list, which is just kind of a view of a daily list. It doesn't move your tasks. It's more like it just made you a nice list for the day of what you're going to be working on. So you can put those 3, 4, 10, 20 things, whatever it is, on your My Day, and then have that first and present for you, right? You can open up the To-Do app on your desktop, and then whenever you're done, you hit the circle and you click it as done, and you get this very, very satisfying ding noise, like cha-ching, you're done. And it's very nice, and it crosses it off, and you just feel so good you got something done. It's really a great feeling of accomplishment and fulfillment. So that My Day is a really great tool. Like I said, I would encourage you to try this personally and professionally, because it's really great. All right, I got a few more slides here. Before we jump into those, we're going to take another survey. given what people had on the prior survey and all the gaps they had in those different areas that they assessed, you know, there's probably some real opportunity there. And some of it can seem daunting. Some of it can be, I'm too busy. Some of it, hey, I'm not ready yet. I'm just trying to gather information here. But, you know, really, I'm sure behind anywhere out that you've got those opportunities to delegate, you are going to reduce stress, create more time, and create more money. So definitely we'd like you to have something you come away from this webinar with, as we go through, wrap up a few more slides here with some next actions that are really going to have you make a difference in this area, because it's clear there are lots of areas. And you may be in both places. You might be, hey, I want to do a training class and I want to keep thinking about it. It's okay to be in multiple areas if you can pick multiple things on the survey. All right, let's start to wrap that up. No one's buying the book? Buy the book. Buy any book. How about that? Check that if you're going to buy any book, because there are lots of techniques out there. Or maybe you got enough books sitting dusty on your shelves, you're going to pick one of those up and just get into action on this. All right, great. Let us see here. So looks like some of you are on business process review. I closed that too quick. And some other areas. So write those down for yourself as well. If there's anything you want to see to do about that as next actions. A couple other areas where you can put things in other types of lists and to-dos and tasks to build accountability. A lot of you have heard of Microsoft SharePoint, and you may be using Microsoft SharePoint probably primarily as a place for documents. You might store documents in SharePoint. You might have your OneDrive, which is kind of a piece of SharePoint. Somebody may be doing some other things in SharePoint using the internal website, team site features. One of the things that's really great with SharePoint is it has another like database feature of it called lists. And lists are really cool. Lists are very free form. You know, you can kind of, you might be thinking of your list, you know, probably the closest parallel to it in some ways is like your spreadsheet, right? Because you kind of create those columns with different things in the spreadsheet. You make your little spreadsheet / kind of database. But, you know, it'd be nice if maybe on that line in the spreadsheet, and I think, you know, Excel can do some of this where you can kind of pop open that line and make like a data entry form. Or maybe you want to have it so that you can add color code and you want to have some alerts and other things. You know, these lists in SharePoint can go beyond a basic list to really be programmed to gather and collect information and expose information in a way that other tools don't operate. And you already own it, and it's all built into Microsoft 365 if you've got one of those tiers that has it. So these list constructs are really cool. And in some ways, they're almost like a to-do list, right? It could be a list of projects people are working on, and you want to know a status. That could be a list in Microsoft SharePoint. Why I'm showing you this SharePoint slide as lists is what Microsoft has done is they've taken the lists in SharePoint and they've created a dedicated app that reads those lists. And it lets you look at them as a web page or as an app on your phone or your tablet. There's even a Windows app now for Microsoft Lists. It looks a lot like the web page. But so the point is, if there's some things you've got, maybe this is not a to-do list per se, it's more like a project list. Maybe it's a list of, I don't know, issues. It's an issues list from a meeting you've got or a big project, and you want to be able to track that, right? That's the thing. When you've got issues around a project or an initiative or things, you've got a to-do list. You've got things you're hopefully delegating to people. Hey, we did this project and the customer loved it. And, you know, we lost some money on the project because we didn't specify the right product the first time. And we had to go back and it ate into our margins. Okay, good. And the debrief for the project, that's a good thing to get. Now, what are you going to do with that issue? You could put it into a Microsoft list as an issue. You could assign somebody. You could put more notes in there. There's other things you could do, and you can manage it through this. So some people like this. It's enormously powerful. It's a little more to set up. The lists themselves are pretty easy, but to really make them sing, it's a little more. But there's ready-made templates out there, so I would definitely take a look and see if this works for you. The one thing is, I don't think this right now yet synchronizes into like Microsoft To Do. So there's like some places where Microsoft has these apps and they're kind of not fully integrated. I'm sure at some point it's going to. You can probably, there's probably some ways of squaring that circle, or for all I know, they've added it in because they're always updating this stuff. But the bottom line is that's another reason why you want to kind of pause as you're doing some of these things, because you want to make sure what you're doing is going to really accomplish the level of delegation and accountability that you want. Let's see here. What else do we have? Here's a few tips and tricks that are kind of nifty. I don't know how many of you do this. This would be a good poll. How many of, we're not going to do it as a poll right now, but really most of you, if you're using Microsoft Outlook, you're probably using Outlook as a full desktop app, or you are using it, from your phone or tablet using the Outlook client, or maybe the, native mail client on your phone, email client on your phone. Outlook is fully available through the web. So, if you go to office.com and you log in properly with your credentials, you can go in and you can see Outlook for the web. And it's nice. And a lot of you are probably used to doing this with other areas. You might have Yahoo Mail and you're using it through the web, or you're using Gmail with your kids' school or something like that. So you're used to using it. This is just Microsoft's version of it, but all the data is the same and it's all available from a web browser. And it's not a consistent experience between what's on the web browser and what's on the full Outlook client. And Microsoft keeps beefing up the web browser and they keep adding features over there. But in some cases, they're not necessarily going back and adding those features over into Outlook full client. So there may be a parity mismatch between the features and functions. So when I'm showing you this delegation tip of creating a task from email content, it's Outlook for the web. It's not regular Outlook, but it's a really cool feature, and you can have both open. So you can have full Outlook open, and you can also have Outlook for the web open on the other, in another web browser tab. But what you can do is sometimes you get that long email with like a bunch of stuff, and you want somebody to follow up on a little section of it. And what do you normally do? You do a reply all, and then you either have to put a big thing, hey, on this section down here, and we've all done that, right? And that's fine. And then you kind of go back and forth on email, and did they get the email, and did they follow up, and all that. What you can do with this is you can actually highlight a section of the email. If there's an email with 3 paragraphs, and in the middle there's a follow up with client on proposal section, you can highlight that part with your mouse. And then you kind of pause, and a little menu will pop up over it. And then you hit the check mark that says create a task. And what will happen is it'll then create a to-do for somebody. You can assign it to yourself. You can assign it to somebody else. And they'll get just that little snippet with a link to the email. I think they get a link to the email too. So that's a very cool feature. A lot of this is being added to the voice assistants that you might use. So if you use Siri, or if you use Google, is it Google Assistant, or Google, there's a Google Assistant, I think that's what their assistant's called, or if you use any of the Amazon products, in some ways there's ways to integrate these so that, like, while I'm driving, I can wake my phone and say, hey, you, I don't want to wake her right now, add a task, please remind me to follow up the client on the proposal while I'm driving. That's handy because it's already on my task list. I'm not encouraging you to do these things while you're driving, so you do what works for you. I'm just letting you know, or you're at a meeting, or you're, just got out of the shower and your phone's sitting on the kitchen, on the bathroom sink. Same kind of thing. You can yell over, hey, remind me to do this. I have some of my best ideas on things, reminders of like, oh, shoot moments. Well, I don't say shoot in the shower. Something else, that's something I forgot or need to do. Those voice assistants can be really handy because we might forget otherwise. If you're using Word or Excel for the web, so a lot of you, again, are probably using Microsoft Office on the desktop, and those applications are great and improving, and there's a lot you can do there. And in some cases, only certain things you can do there. In this case, I don't know if you're starting to use those features that Microsoft added into Word and Excel where you can comment and have like a little thread back and forth for people about a document. There's some collaboration components in there. Well, now if you collaborate and you do an @ so if you and I were working on a document together on the web and you went over on the right side to the comment section and you said, @Jeremy, please review this document, let me know what you think. Before you send it, there's going to be a little checkbox to say add a task. And I'll actually get a task on my task list. That's really handy. Because what do we spend a lot of time doing? Going back and forth over documents, going back and forth over the contents of an email, going back and forth through email. Who's got the ball? Who had the email? Oh, I forgot to CC somebody on the email, or I didn't reply all, and now I don't know what's happening. Email can work, but you got to be really disciplined. And in some cases, it's more time consuming because you got to go through all those email threads. So instead of using documents and sending documents back and forth, try this. You can have the document open on your desktop and in the web at the same time even. Many of you are using Microsoft Teams for online meetings, and some of you are starting to use it for phones and using it for internal chats. Microsoft Teams is a whole platform unto itself. And what I mean by that is it's not just those things. It's that plus the ability to augment it with additional applications to add additional functionality and have it be a single hub for all that information. There are some people and some businesses where the team, the people doing the day-to-day work, only work out of Microsoft Teams. They don't use email. They chat with their supervisor through it. They chat about projects through it. They get their tasks through it. So with Microsoft Teams, there's a little app you can add for Planner, for Microsoft Planner. So inside of Microsoft Teams, both on the desktop and on your phone, you can now see Planner in there. Because one of the other things is the more apps we have, that's the other thing that drives people crazy, right? For most people, for so many years, I had my business app, and I had like Word and Excel and Outlook, and that was pretty much it. Now it's I got my business app, and I got Word and Outlook and Excel and To-Do and SharePoint, and I got my clients' to-do list, and I've got this other thing we're trying over here in Gmail and da-da-da. People want to centralize. It's, you start to go crazy. Plus you got 3 screens, I got 3 screens. Which app is it even on? So, I mean, which app, which screen, right? So you can start to go crazy with this stuff, and it's a challenge. So you might decide, hey, maybe your business system is really Microsoft Teams, and you're going to start leveraging some of these features to start build, kind of reinvent your spreadsheet and make it something that's more collaborative. It has more accountability in it. Teams is a great place for that, as a central place to then bring these components I'm talking about into one place. When you're inside of Microsoft Teams, if you are using it to chat back and forth, that's also super cool. But sometimes what happens in a chat, it turns into a go do this by then, right? It turns into something you want to delegate. So if you're in a chat and you're like, I don't know what this is, I need somebody to do it, you can actually click the ellipsis, the 3 dots on a chat bubble. And from there, you can create a task and assign it to yourself or assign it to somebody else. So that's a cool feature. Email's great. You can copy and paste that stuff in email to work that way. Some of you may be big email users. The nice thing about like these alerts and things that come through, you can have those alerts go to your email. So for your people who are just really love email, they can manage some of this stuff with their email. But for those that want to try on something new, see if they have a tool that they want to try on to be a little more effective, look at these planner and teams and to do. So this gets you, a good chunk of the way, right? For a lot of people, if you got really good at just showing you what I did here, your life would be dramatically improved. And the people around you, their lives would be dramatically improved, right? You could see it. You'd have less stress. They would have clearer delegation. There'd be less frustration about those batons being handed back and forth. So there's a tremendous opportunity inside of everything I'm showing you here. And sometimes people want to take it to even another level. So even with all of this, there's other enhancements you can add. So maybe you start with this as a phase one. You start to get your to-dos handled after you've kind of talked to somebody about where you want this to go. You can start to add some steam to that, meaning we can start to add some automation to this. So inside of all of these tasks, there's more workflow you can add. You can have it say, hey, when somebody completes this task, it automatically goes back to the supervisor for approval. Or as soon as a task is complete, it automatically emails the client to let them know that their proposal will be emailed to them within 3 days. I don't know. There's some ways you can automate some of these communications, some of these alerts, some of these, hey, here's what's going on, some of these baton passes with Teams and workflow and Power Automate and other things. So, in some cases you can start here and build it up enough that now you have a system that really, really works for you, that isn't overly complicated, that's accessible from anywhere, and really, kind of meets the need now without having to be some big something or other. Because sometimes, I shouldn't say sometimes, for me, and what I do in some cases, perfect is the enemy of good enough. When I'm delegating to people and trying to figure some things out, there's a time where you want something perfect, right? When we're doing certain work we do in IT, it's got to be perfect, right? That box has got to be checked or not checked for something to happen. You got to be perfect with checking that box. With delegation, there's a whole world of wiggle room. There's a whole world of other ways we've done it, things we thought we said, things we thought were understood. Sometimes with these tools, we think about we need to get these really complex delegation management systems, and you might really need one of those. You might really do. And sometimes there's barriers to it in terms of time. There's barriers in terms of cost. Barriers in terms of people wanting to really adopt it and go forward, change. So this might be a way to kind of get something in between. If it's going to be years before you can get that business system, maybe what you've got right now is there's a gap there. Maybe inside that gap, there's a little suffering for yourself and others. Maybe these tools are things that you can really start to do. Our brains are amazing. I mean, the stuff we've come up with, the stuff we can do, it's crazy. But it's a really bad place to store long lists of information. It's a bad place to store long lists of to-dos that you're going to get done that day. I mean, we all have different areas of effectiveness within it, but most studies show if I gave you a list of like 3 or 4 things to do, that's about as much as you can handle with your brain without some additional structure. If I gave you 5, 10, 20 things today, you would have a hard time remembering and managing all of those. If I gave you 10, 20, 30 things to do over the week, same brain. And you're using this brain while you're trying to manage the rest of your life, right? You've got whatever stressors you've got in life, and got to get to your kid's soccer game, and got to get to scouts, and got to get to the gym, and got to go shopping, got to get, all of that stuff, right? There's just so many to-do lists in there. And people get distracted. Our brains are amazing. They're not great for these kinds of things. So let's just accept that. Let's not beat ourselves up. if we're not a great person at managing. I gave up beating myself up for being a procrastinator, for not being able to handle long lists. Give yourself the grace, give your team the grace, and start to use some of these tools. Give them a shot. Give yourself a shot, and you will get remarkable results. I guarantee it, because we guarantee a better technology experience at Tobin Solutions. And how we guarantee that is understanding what you need, help you find the tools you need that work, help you get to use them, and you're going to see some improvement somewhere if people actually use them. So let's find out what happens. 2 days ago was our 26 years in business, our Tobin anniversary, and there are great things that have happened over the years. We have a great team. We're looking forward to many more years of working with you around these things. Any other questions or answers, or any questions you have, or answers, you can have those too. Feel free to drop them in the chat. If you got other things you'd like to speak about, or you want to talk about any of those areas that you wrote down, or any of those things that you saw as next steps, let us know. We can have a conversation about it and see if it makes sense to, we can take a look at what that would look like and see if it makes sense to move forward.